Don't be distracted by my embarrassing zombie Pikachu shirt. It's a Sunday and I'm just wearing old comfy clothes. Welcome back to another installment of my monthly reading update, because some people care or just need some background noise while they scrub their toilet or something. Who knows? I appreciate every one of you. This is a book I'm gonna be talking in this segment. Despite my childish appearance, this book is very much dry academic content for the adult mind. Well, like I said in the last video, this is a German book called Fusionen, Kartelle, Skandale, das Bundeskartellamt als Wettbewerbshüter und Verbraucheranwalt by the author Werner Kurzlechner. I've been going to trade school for a while now, and that includes business class, where you learn all about the mechanics of what makes capitalism tick. That includes all the fun, ideal theories of how the free market is supposed to work and regulate itself through a natural meeting of supply and demand and healthy competitiveness between companies. All of that whole thing, but it also, business class also includes realizing how and why all of these fun, beautiful little theories are almost impossible to realize in real life, because real world is a lot more complicated. That's why there isn't really a place in the world where a true definitive free market exists. Governments always try more or less to stabilize the market, to balance out the natural competitiveness of the market with actual social stability, which is why there have been founded and developed a bunch of agencies in different countries, in different places of the world, especially designed to deal with that as part of the government, as an arm of the law, guarding the market. Watch out for any practices that would throw the market out of balance, resulting in bad stuff, to say it plainly. Here in Germany we have many countries have a federal cartel office or something like that. And the book that I've picked up from the library to read is specifically about Germany's federal cartel office. While I'm not the biggest fan of capitalism, I do find this part of business, of the market, fascinating, of this regulatory arm of the law, attempting to keep the core of capitalism somewhat fair and in check, mostly for the consumer's well-being. I mean, it's an important thing, and it seems like a super difficult task. So I really wanted to learn how these entities, this agency especially, even came into being in a proper way, and how it developed over the years, and what its history is. And this book here is pretty much chronicling that, starting even before the foundation of Germany's Federal Cartel Office, and then going all the way until the early 2000s, when this book was actually finished and published. And there's a lot that's covered here, and obviously there's plenty of stretches full of dry content where the text is just overflowing with company name after company name and lots of economic numbers that just make sense. But the book is still generally written in a very casual way, so it is actually pretty approachable. It obviously helps if you know some basic vocabulary, but it's generally pretty approachable and written it's not a 100% cold academic book. And while I wasn't interested much in the pre-World War II times, when things like monopolies haven't even been recognized as something potentially dangerous and harmful to the greater good, and where companies growing to scary sizes was actually still like something that was respected rather than looked upon with skepticism. I wasn't really interested much in that part, but once we get past World War II, and especially in the second half of the 20th century, when the Federal Cartel Office in Germany actually existed for a little bit, and was like in the middle of finding its footing and its place in the government, or as like an assistant of the government. That's where it actually had some very interesting chapters for me. Especially, I think my favorite chapter was probably the one about regulating the competitiveness between publishers of opinion-forming media and why that is so important. I mean, obviously you want to have, as a consumer, obviously you want to have access to many different publications with many different opinions or viewpoints. You wouldn't want one publisher to own every single piece of media in your country and being able to push the same thing through every fucking outlet. So you don't want that, obviously, and it's very important to go against that. And that is clearly one section that the cartel office would be involved in, and that's like a subcategory of the cartel office's work that is like a whole subject in itself that I find fascinating, because that's where it's not only the market subject, the economy subject, but also the whole, I don't know how to say, the sociological part of media informing the population, and how business heavily manipulates that, obviously, if it's not regulated. That's a whole subject in itself that I find interesting as fuck. There's also in this book a chapter about the very difficult and complicated history of trying to regulate the energy market. There was a chapter that had a lot of information that I couldn't 100% like grasp or like retain, but it was interesting nonetheless. Even if I didn't understand every detail and the whole story, why it ended up like this, it did make me understand a little bit more how it started that energy companies became such a big oligopoly. Is that how you pronounce it? Oligopoly?
Oligopoly.
Just a market with just a few but powerful suppliers. It has some reasons behind it from its historical roots that I never really thought about, which this book made a bit clearer to me. It's also a whole subject in itself. The energy market is a huge fucking deal. That's full of complicated problems. But yeah, that is basically what I took away from this book. My rating would be more like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Not really a full 4, but you know, the graphic and whatever, they don't let you choose half stars. It wasn't like an amazing book, but it was very interesting, and it did teach me some things or point things out that I hadn't considered yet about how the market works, about economy as a whole. Took me a while to get through, but I'm glad I did, and it wasn't a bad pick. It wasn't something I regretted or anything. And that was my little skirmish into fucking economy history or whatever. I have another non-fiction book that I'm reading right now, but I already can tell that I'm gonna be reading fiction this month, mostly probably because I need a break from these heavy or like these dense non-fiction books. So, finished my second library book. The Buzkashi one, my Afghanistan read for this month. So this is Buzkashi. Game and Power in Afghanistan by G. Whitney Azoy. This was awesome. I really loved this. Like I said before, I'm really glad I was able to get this through my library. This was one of my favorite reads in a while. This was super fucking interesting. Buzkashi, if you don't know, you probably don't, is a traditional game in Afghanistan, a sport, where a bunch of people on horses ride around a field carrying a dead calf or goat. And then there's like a few different rule sets, but the main thing is you earn points by carrying this dead goat or calf to a certain destination without it being taken away by another player. That's the very, very basic gist of it. Obviously there's a much more detailed rule sets to this, although they vary from region to region, or like from occasion to occasion, I guess. It's not like written in stone by a like official agency or whatever. But that is a game that exists. You can watch footage of these games on YouTube right now, and it's pretty dang brutal. You know, Americans like to throw around their pigskin when playing American football. Afghanistans like to carry around their calf corpse when they play Buzkashi. I mean, what's the difference, really? And yeah, you could. It exists. It's a traditional sport in Afghanistan, mostly northern Afghanistan, if I'm not mistaken. And you can watch footage of that right now on YouTube, and it's brutal. Not just because they carry around a dead animal, but also just because they are fucking crashing into each other on those horses all the time. They jump off those horses to get those calf corpses into specific like point regions and whatever. It's nasty. Like, it's brutal. If you like the testosterone-laden violence of American football, you unironically might wanna watch Buzkashi, because that one, there's some bones that are broken, I believe, like regularly, the way they play that game. The first time I heard about this game, the sport, I wasn't even sure if it was real or just like a fictional creation. One of the Rambo movies, one of the Rambo sequels where he is actually in Afghanistan actually has a scene where they play Buzkashi, and when I saw that, I wasn't even sure if they just made that up or if that was an actual real thing in Afghanistan, but turns out it's real, it exists, it has a traditional meaning as well, and it like is still going on to this day. And when I found out there was a whole book about this, I was more expecting to learn about, you know, the rules and the origin of this game, but sure, the rules and the different rule sets, the popular ones, are in here. There are even like full-on like diagrams, which are fucking fascinating. Tell me another sport that has a whole ass field diagram that incorporates a calf carcass. Like, that's brutal as shit. Again, the rule sets are in here, but the origin is kinda unclear, and that's not what this focuses on anyway. What this book actually really focuses on is its meaning, not really as a sport, but as a traditional event with political meaning. Because in the more rural parts of the country, the sport of Buzkashi is mostly like used as a highlight for an already happening event, and organizing the Buzkashi, which is often an event that spans over multiple days and has visitors from around the country coming in, like it's a huge deal. Organizing that event almost has more of a meaning than the sport itself, because the person, the Khan, that manages to organize a successful Buzkashi earns a lot of reputation from that. You earn a lot of respect and reputation and social power, you know, and that's where like the political meaning of the sport actually comes in, and one of the major reasons why it's such a big tradition. And then there's also the whole level of Buzkashi becoming a true national sport, being even organized by the government in Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, and then having a completely different meaning and political power in there as well. Like, there's a lot to this sport outside of the actual sport, and that's what this book is really discussing. And obviously this is not written by an Afghan person. This is written by, I believe, an American, but a scholar, like some sort of well-established scholar that's been walking in the field for decades. This book has also been written in the 70s, 80s. This book has been written in the 80s. It was actually conceived, like the whole research that was done for this book happened during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, so that plays a bit into this as well. I love this book. This was a full 10 out of 10 for me, not only because of this thorough, multifaceted information about this for us obscure sport, but also because of the little parts of the author's own experiences learning about the sport while traveling Afghanistan. That's super fucking interesting to me too. When I talked in January about Afghanistan by Thomas Barfield, that book that went through the entire history of the country, I was already saying, you know, cool, that book gave me a lot of like basic groundwork about the history, but I would really like to dive into the actual cultural aspects of those people, and Buzkashi kind of is the highlight of that. This was a really satisfying and interesting, thorough look into a very unique cultural aspect of Afghanistan. This was super fun and interesting. I love this book. This was great. And I found out a few days ago that this Whitney Azoy wrote another book about Buzkashi, but with a bigger scope, which was only published like a few years ago. And I'm super fucking curious to read more of that and more of like Azoy's experiences in Afghanistan, because he's a good writer. I liked reading his stories about the country. Like, I really want to read more about this. This was dope. I'm gonna bring this back to the library today after finishing this section of the video, after filming this, and then I already know that I think I already said this, I already know that for the rest of the month I'm gonna be reading fiction more than non-fiction. I did have a lot of non-fiction lately,